Holy, holy, holy. The angels say to one another in the book of Isaiah, Kadosh, watch my heels, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Holy, holy, holy is the ruler of the multitudes of heavens. All the world is filled with divine glory. Kadosh, 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 Adonai spoke. Malo kavodo, Malo olam kavodo. And reaching up with our heels with each mention of holy during the Kedusha, we move higher and higher, just like the angels. Don't you feel like angels when you're doing that? I think the choir does. They sound good. This is the time of year where we strive for holiness, for ascension, climbing the stairs toward heaven, as we say about God in the Kaddish. Le'ela, le'ela, higher and higher, yearning to reach the top, where a world redeemed exists, where all things in life are possible. These, after all, are the high holy days. You might have noticed that I said that in a very particular way. Have you noticed that we've been talking about things a little differently here at Shir Shalom over the last month? Have you noticed? Has anyone noticed? It's been in, we slipped it by you. There's a difference because normally we've talked about it as high holidays. But this year we've started to call it, and you'll see it in your leaflet, and you'll see it throughout our synagogue as high holy days. Now, Rabbi, you ask, what is the difference? Now, raise your hand if you are part of the high holiday contingent. Is anyone part of that? Okay. What about high holy day? See, most people don't have a strong opinion. I think that, where's Mindy from Ritlit? We didn't even need to have a talk at all. But this year in particular, we wanted to switch to high holy days because I think this year is a little different. We need an extra emphasis on holy. Don't we need a little extra holiness in our lives? Every time we open the paper, if you still do so, or look out at our social media accounts, or talk to one another in the streets, holiness seems to be draining from the world. More than ever, we need to feel the sacredness of life, a reminder of how lucky we are to be alive, even in such interesting times. A holiday is where we go to relax and tan. This is a holy day, a time of reflection, repair, and rebirth. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Let me explain what I mean by holy. The Hebrew word we translate as holy, kadosh, is actually not that at all. Kadosh means set apart, to make something different. In Judaism, holiness does not come from the day itself, but from our designation of that day as holy. Things are holy because we say they are. Martin Buber, the famous theologian, tells the following story. It's about two men, it's always men back then, excuse me ladies, who ponder what makes something holy. So they decide to do a test. They decide to make Shabbat in the middle of the week. Can you imagine on Wednesday, Yom Revi'i, they tell their bosses, we're not coming in to work. They get dressed up, they tell their families, we're going to have Shabbat in the middle of the week. And they do this. And they go through all the customs. And this is a couple of Orthodox Jews, and they have a lot of customs. And they get to the end of it, and you know what? It feels exactly the same as it does on Shabbat. So they're perplexed, and they go to the rabbi. Because you always go to the rabbi, right? And the rabbi says, if you put on Sabbath clothes and Sabbath caps, I'm wearing my Sabbath cap, it is quite right that you had a feeling of Sabbath holiness, because Sabbath clothes and Sabbath caps have the power of drawing the light of Sabbath holiness down to earth. Just by going through the motions of the day, it became like Shabbat. There's actually a riddle that they have. My dad loves science fiction. He's up from Philadelphia, and there's a riddle. When do you celebrate Shabbat if you're on the space shuttle? It's actually a 1,000-year-old riddle, because they might not have space shuttles back then, but they did have ships and they did leave. And the answer was always, you celebrate from the place where you took off. And so Shabbat, for all those astronauts, and this referred to the couple of Jewish astronauts we've had, they always celebrated Florida time. That's the Professor Vanessa Oakes out of the University of Virginia, an expert on Jewish ritual, writes about how matzah becomes holy. The matzah matters then, as does the box that it comes from. Anyone try to get a matzah box? Who here is particular about the matzah? You might go, you get the 5 pounds of matzah from the supermarket. That was always the way of getting you in. They give you a Haggadah too, right? But if you're really into matzah, that's not what you go. If you like coffee, you can appreciate that. Because it's not just the box it comes in, it's the brand name, the country, especially if it's from Israel, and the competing sale prices. According to Vanessa Oakes, this was at Waldbaum's and the food pouring. Now we'll have to say Wegmans and Tops or Whole Foods? I'm not sure. She continues, the imprint of the rabbi's name matters as it certifies, endorses, and extends enduring blessings of the purchased matzah. The especially chosen plate reserved for this use matters, and so does the cover placed upon it. And it matters where on this Passover table the matzah is placed, and who sits nearest to it, who gets to sit near the matzah, who is selected to uncover it, point to it, bless it, divide it, and determine who gets it first and who gets what size. I was at a table once, my family will remember, where we had a debate about matzah because there were, in our room, multiple customs. Some of the customs were you had to eat an entire piece of shmora matzah in 3 minutes. True story. So some of us were eating, trying to get through the meal, and they were eating their large, if you've seen a shmora matzah, especially a handmade one, it's about this big. Now try eating that in 3 minutes. That's the Jewish eating content, I guess. It all matters because that's how holiness happens. This is the same process the ancient priests went through thousands of years ago and that we go through today. Indeed, Judaism teaches us the following 5 lessons about Kedusha, holiness. Lessons that can help us break out of the funk of 5777 and transform 5778 into a year filled with splendor and awe. All right, you ready for number 1? Anyone here can designate holiness. Anyone can designate holiness. That's right, anyone. One does not have to be a rabbi or go to rabbinical school or cantorial school or even be on our board. Excuse me? Believe me, they are the holiest people here. If you've been through our board meetings, no, I'm just kidding. Because that extends to weddings and funerals too. In Judaism, you do not have to be a rabbi or cantor to lead either a wedding or a funeral. It says in the Torah, Kedoshim tiyu, ki kadosh ani Adonai. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord, your God, am holy. So we are all holy, and we can all designate holiness. Number 2, almost any object or time period can be designated as holy. We already saw Wednesday can be holy. I think Wednesday is pretty holy. We are free to determine what is sacred in our lives. In the same ways that when you place candles on a birthday cake, they become holy. This sanctuary, for example, is empty most of the year, And tonight, it really looks spectacular and holy. Number 3, we cannot have holiness all the time. We cannot have holiness all the time. It might be nice to think that we should be holy all the time, but we really cannot be holy all the time. There's actually a ratio, a mathematical ratio. For all the mathematicians here, we have a 1-to-7 ratio, and you can guess what that refers to Shabbat. 1 day out of 7 should be holy. Shabbat comes once a week, not every day. There was a debate between Hillel and Shammai, because Hillel he never prepared for Shabbat, because he just knew God would provide the chicken dinner. It just always happened. They didn't even have chicken dinners. Shammai, the stern one, he always prepared at least at Wednesday. He wanted to really be prepared, always thinking. And because of that, on Wednesday, you can wish each other Shabbat Shalom. Little known fact. Tuesday's the last day for Havdalah, too. And that's Havdalah, the ceremony that we light the candle after Shabbat. What we do is we say Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol, for differentiating between holiness and the normal everyday life, because the everyday is important too. But number 4, we have to have holiness. We have to have it in regular doses. Our life, we are deflated without holiness. Without holiness, our lives lose a sense of purpose and meaning. This is the danger of the modern day life, where we dart from one thing to the next. Next, we lose perspective. We become transformed into 24/7 people, where one day blends into the next without differentiation. The Jewish people have always been 24/6 people. I took that from Chabad, sorry. Pausing at times just to appreciate all that we have been through. And lastly, number 5, holiness is better when it is shared. There is a reason why we wait for the 10th person to make our minyan. Only when we reach that elusive 10 can we say certain prayers like the Kedusha and the Kaddish. Holiness is best enjoyed together. So how do we truly make these holidays, the high holy days, get used to saying it, high holy days. If we're in Vegas, you say the holy rollers. In my last synagogue, we actually had these rollers that would roll the Torah. They called them the holy rollers. True story. And that was in New Jersey, near Atlantic City. For each of you, this will be different. Some are called by the music. I love watching your faces when Cantor Frank and our choir and Shirunah sing Henty's Merit. Some of us are drawn to the words of the rabbi and the words that are on your page. Still, for others, is just being together with family and community. For others, still, just the quiet in between the prayers that provide a moment to reflect. By turning off our skeptic's hat and turning towards the time-tested mechanisms of the Jewish people, we lose ourselves and find what is holy. More importantly, how do we make our everyday lives holy? We do say so by finding time in our schedule to celebrate and to elevate the ordinary into the extraordinary. We were sitting around at the kitchen getting ready for Rosh Hashonah. My parents were on their way, and lo and behold, my wife said, "There's a fox outside." That is a moment of holiness. Walk outside here. If you see deer, even at night, you can see them staring at you. For some of us, this might mean turning off our cell phones. For others, it means turning them on. Some of us will find our sacred spot here at our temple, and this is always open for you anytime you want. Some will need an open field or a cityscape. For some, it will be in a good book or a good class, and others, it will be a movie or a concert. Your holy is out there. Just go and find it. You will be amazed at the difference it makes. According to Judaism, every single human being is inherently holy. We are all holy because God is holy. All of us are made B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. As Rabbi Sheila Peltz Weinberg, the rabbi who bar mitzvahed me, writes, Who are holy beings? They are beloved, clear of mind and courageous. Their will and God's are one. Raising their voices in constant gratitude, they marvel at every detail of life, granting each other loving permission to be exactly who they are. When we listen for their sweet voices, we can hear the echo within our own souls. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Holy, holy, holy. We say, moving past the clouds of modern day life, past the clouds of the internet and social media, past the clouds of pettiness and disagreement, into a new commitment to be holy, because God is holy, because we are as well. May these high holy days be joyful, sacred, and above all, uplifting. Shana Tova Mituka, a sweet and holy